Hey everyone, it's Isaac or Centerspace or however you like to call me. I'm here with another manga haul, this time for the month of December. It's been a pretty interesting year. It's kind of the first almost full year, I'd say majority of the year, that I've been actively reading manga. Maybe not actively collecting it, but now actively at least starting to dip my toes in stuff of light novel and manga. So this is my first manga and light novel haul of December 2021. Just kind of date this a little bit. The first anime season just started. Attack on Titan will be later today, which I'm pretty excited about. And then we will also be getting. Yesterday I watched My Dress Up Darling anime adaptation by Cloverworks, which seems like a really excellent adaptation, which I'm really happy about because I was reading the manga before I even know an anime existed. So that's kind of a cool feeling. When you see something that you like that gets adapted well. Hopefully it stays up to that pace, and I hope that the next manga volume will come out before the anime spoils it. So I guess we got about 3 months or so till that point, or 2 months. We'll see how fast they adapt it. So kind of addressing some things in the obvious concerns or obvious questions right now. I did change my setup. I'm still using the webcam, unfortunately, so sorry it's not the highest quality or the highest fidelity that I could make available, unfortunately. I got some new bookshelves, as you can see behind me. They are metal and wood, essentially. Metal frames with wood panels. I wanted to get something that stood out a little bit more than the regular bookshelves you would see in all the other manga haul videos. I wanted something that would stand out a bit, was darker in color so the books would pop out more, and something that felt a little bit more open and airy. Usually my problem with bookshelves, they look really tight and cramped, and especially if you don't get a good quality backboard for it, if it's just like a piece of cardboard essentially on the back or a thin piece of plywood, it looks kind of cheap. So I think this one looks a little bit better. It might be at a slight angle. I think the floor is uneven, so it's not going to look great. There, I did the best what I could with the adjustable feet, but to make me look even with the bookshelves was kind of something that was really hard to do. So sorry if you notice it. The lighting's also not great either. I'm just using some LED strip light. So hopefully you can make out some of the stuff behind me. You'll see there's a lot of holes behind it. I took out it was a pretty big manga haul this time and light novel haul. So I wanted to get those off, and it shows you how much it's actually going to sit up there. Also, you'll notice that they're kind of propped up weird. I'm missing some book corners. So right now they're being propped up with Blu-ray discs and everything, and like other knickknacks that I can find, things I don't mind following, and potentially the book could become too heavy. Oh, there's a lot of shipping stuff that got delayed. We had some severe weather conditions, straight up snowstorms and such. Everything's for the most part fine now, but it'll be hard to tell when I get my stuff finally. There is some books that will be missing in this haul that I'll have to do in the separate manga or light novel haul for January. Not too much. I think this is still the majority of the stuff. There will be some housekeeping stuff also at the very end of the video, so keep an eye on that. I'm going to be combining the manga and light novel hauls with the reading log video, so if I read them while I'm talking about them, I'll just talk about it instead of pretending not to read them and be like, oh, I wonder how this will turn out, because I've already read them. This will save time in terms of I don't have to make two videos I feel obligated to do, and also I think it'll combine the more interesting video with maybe something that's a little bit less interesting. Like I tried to do the reading log video, didn't seem to get a lot of traction, and I tried to do the top 5 books I read of the month, or manga or light novels, but that didn't really gain traction either. Not that those are bad ideas or that I might not revisit them later, but I think for now I'm just going to combine the two, and then we'll try to do more reviews. I'm still unsure how I'll conduct reviews for something like Quintessential Quintuplets, where it's completed. I own it all, read it all. It's pretty easy to write a review or to read a review and to perform a review for that. But for stuff like, I don't know, Berserk, for example, where I only have 4 volumes, should I review every 3 volumes? I don't really want to review every single volume. That seems like a lot, especially for how much I read. Is best every 3 volumes? Best every 5? What do you think? I used to review video games and stuff, so of course you would want to finish the game or at least absorb as much content as possible if it's a multiplayer only game before you would start viewing it. So I feel the same way in manga, where I feel uncomfortable in light novels, where I feel uncomfortable reviewing it until everything is out. But some of the stuff will never complete, never finish. Some of them are on long hiatuses. Some of them have really long translation periods. For Classroom of the Elite, it's been like 4 or 5 months, it feels like, since the last one. Probably has been that long, but it feels like that long, especially I think the next one doesn't come out until March, I feel like, which is pretty crazy and really disappointing. I know there's a lot of crazy stuff going on with the disease and the plague and weather and everything like that, but you know, it is what it is. So this is gonna be a pretty decent haul, kind of going back to it. The Right Stuff holiday, a lot of this stuff is the Right Stuff holiday sale and other new releases. There's a bunch of stuff that I ordered that I'm really excited about, but it's out of stock right now. Hopefully Right Stuff doesn't cancel their orders or anything like that, because I don't know when I'll get a lot of this stuff. It's in pretty high demand. I don't really want to talk about it in case that stuff never comes. So not only do I not want to set up your guys' expectation, but I don't want to get my hopes up either in case they do cancel. I'll be disappointed. It's really good prices for really cool stuff that I'm interested in, actively interested in. I don't want to jump the gun a little bit. Don't count your eggs until they hatch, that kind of deal. But we still got a decent amount of stuff. Some stuff I'm surprised I was able to get a hold of. But yeah, let's get into it. All right, the first series we'll be talking about here is Gelpnir. This is volume 1 of Gelpnir. This is a one where I was an anime first person. I watched the anime. It was very mid, I would say. Mid production values, mid animation style. But it felt like the story was really interesting. I felt the same way about that Gelpnir that I did about Goblin Slayer, where I gave it like a 5 or a 6, I think, on my anime list. But I could feel that maybe there was more under the surface. I don't feel that way about all of the shows I watch, especially the middling shows. Some of them I will read the story and be like, I think there's more to this than what I'm getting. Some adaptations, I watch the anime and I'm satisfied. I don't think the manga could do any better than what I'm expecting to get from the source material. For example, Jujutsu Kaisen. I think Jujutsu Kaisen is incredible. Probably one of the few shonens I actually like. I think I gave it a 10 out of 10 on my anime list. Definitely one of the best anime of last year. I have no real reason to read the manga because I feel like the adaptation is so excellent, where the soundtrack, the voice acting, and of course, most importantly, the animation all comes together to create a fantastic story that I don't have really any concerns about, honestly. And nothing where I'm wanting more necessarily. I want more of the show, but I'm not necessarily getting super excited to dig into the stuff I've already read. Now, Gelpnir is different, and so is Goblin Slayer, where under the surface of the show, I felt like there's a really good story here. I wonder if the manga or the light novel or the source material in general will offer something to me. So for Gelpnir, I felt that way, and I think I was correct about it. I'm up to date on Gelpnir. I have all 10 volumes, which will show basically at the end of the discussion. And having finished it, I liked it quite a bit. It's not revolutionary. It's not innovative. It doesn't have any deep thematic elements or make you re-examine the human condition or your place in the universe. It's a really fun battle royale manga, which is how I would describe it. So kind of give a more top heavy or plot centered synopsis. Gelpnir follows main character Shuichi as he comes to realize that he has a power to turn it into a mascot costume of a big cartoon wolf. And he has this mysterious zipper on the back that he doesn't know and can't get open himself. He saves a girl who tries to commit suicide, and Claire, who witnesses him transforming back to a person and uses that into a regular person and uses that as blackmail to basically make him do what she wants, which is to collect these coins that has some connection to do with the disappearance of her sister and the murder of her parents. And so this is kind of the adventure of the two as we try to figure out what happened to Shuichi, how did he get these powers, what's the deal with Claire's sister, what happened to her parents, who killed them, and how does all this fit together. It's a very edgy, dark manga, as you may know now from me. I either like myself really dark and edgy, or I like myself really fluffy and romantic. This is much darker. So if you are sensitive to heavy subject material, then I would not recommend Gelpnir. I would not recommend Gelpnir if you're sensitive to heavy subject material or controversial subject material like sexual assault, nudity, violence, gore, psychological damage and harm. If any of that stuff's not really your cup of tea, I wouldn't recommend it. But as a big fan, as I said, I love edgy stuff. I love the Future Diary, at least the anime. I've never read the manga, the source material for the Future Diary, but I love the Future Diary. That tells you what kind of shows I like, at least the quality of show, which I know a lot of people don't like the Future Diary, but I don't care. I love it. And Gelpnir gives me pretty similar to the same fix. I would say Future Diary has a better twist, but it's kind of hard to say because it's been a long time since I've seen Gelpnir, and the anime, after reading the manga, I realized was constructed strangely, and that's because they mix things up and repurpose a lot of the plot points in different arrangements or different settings or even different characters interacting with each other during them. To even points where in the manga I'm like, when does this happen in the manga? Because I feel like we got to this part in this anime, and it's because it happens later or at different periods of time or with different characters. So it's kind of weird. It's kind of one of the few times where I've read a source material thing and thought, That's pretty wildly different. I'm sure I'll counter that more and more the more I get into manga and light novels, and then still anime, watching their anime adaptations. What I will say about Gelpnir is that the art style and just the paneling is excellent. I really love almost every single frame of when the battles start, or when some cool psychological horror stuff is going on. It's really detailed, and it kind of makes you realize that an anime from this would be really hard to do because of how detailed and how expressive and how interesting each little panel is for Gelpnir. Not to excuse the anime, of course, for being mid. I still think you could probably do a really good show. We've seen other psychological horror action shows do well and are well expressed. I think even though you may not like the Future Diary animation, story, I think the animation is pretty good in that show. And really expressive and really detailed. I can't compare it to the manga, but from the panels I've seen, I would say the anime even improves on some of that stuff a little bit. To be fair, I haven't read it all, just the panels I've seen. So yeah, Gelpnir, I won't get into heavy spoilers for it, but there's a lot of twists and turns, which you might know a decent amount of them from watching the anime, but there's a couple that you may not know about. So I definitely will say that if you were a fan of the anime, hoping for a sequel, may not know if it's ever going to come, don't know if it's worth getting into the manga, it's worth getting into the manga. I recommend getting into it from the beginning, since there is so much expanded material and differing material. And also even the scenes that you remember are going to look much better and cooler and more interesting in the manga. So that's my recommendation of Gelpnir. I'm going to show all of them off to you. Again, with reviews, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to review this. I think we're near volume 10 ends. I feel like we're pretty near the conclusion, I would say, of this story, but who knows when that's coming out. And it seems like it doesn't get updated that often in Japan itself. So maybe I'll do a review of the 10 volumes I've read so far. Who knows? We'll see how it works. But I already showed you volume 1, so here is volume 2. Boom. There's not much on the back, so I won't show you that. We have volume 3, volume 4, and of course some of the stuff might be slight spoilers, but it's fine. Volumes 5, volume 6, volume 7, volume 8, volume 9, and volume 10. Again, slight spoilers, but if you don't know, you don't know. So it is what it is. And moving on to some new releases here, we got Let This Grieving Soul Retire Volume 1, which is a manga. This isn't an isekai. I have to keep reminding myself that because I keep slipping into the isekai terminology when I talk about this or think about it. But it's a fantasy series about a low-level or a low-skill character who somehow gets to become a leader of one of the strongest guilds in the fantasy world. So it's about his little journey to become, to try to put off much work as possible that could possibly get him killed, also trying to reap the most benefits for him and the party, essentially. It feels mostly like, again, it's not an isekai, but to me it feels like Konosuba Light, where the main character reminds me a lot of Kazuma, very scummy, very profit-driven, kind of generic, not generic, but generic in the way where I feel like I saw Kazuma before as that scummy role, and seeing this guy, there really isn't much differentiating to, because Kazuma was already not a very strong person individually. It also has like a pretty weak romance where there's this girl who's a really high-level rogue that's very interested in him for reasons that are never explained and never really gotten into. It's just very mid-tier. I wouldn't say it's bad. There is some good artwork here and there, some decent jokes, nothing super laugh out loud funny like that I would describe for a lot of the other comedy stuff that I like stuff like Spy Family and stuff like that. But it's not something I have a lot of hateful things to say about it or disrespectful things or anything like that. I'm just kind of indifferent for it to the most part. So I don't think I will be continuing this one on that note as well, because even though I have a lot of bookshelf space now, having two of them side by side, I still have limited room. So I want to make sure that I maximize the best stuff possible. So I've already gotten rid of I have about 5 to 6 I have set aside that I want to downgrade on or to reduce the load on, basically get rid of. I'll kind of go over that in a separate video on why I chose those titles and maybe it's something you'll be interested in potentially, picking up for yourself. Me talking about it, you're like, oh, that sounds like something I might be interested in, or at least maybe save you some time from picking it up yourself. So that'll be one video that I visit later on. But yeah, for Let This Grievance Soul Retire, I think it's pretty mid, and I won't be continuing it most likely. All right, for another series, kind of a weird series where I'm trying to round out my collection of it, I have Chainsaw Man. So Chainsaw Man, I have Volume 2. And this one's a little risque, but we'll see how that goes. We have Volumes 5, which I think is my favorite cover. I really love the position of the frame and the coloring that's used. The rainbow is really cool looking. And then Volume 8, which I believe is the newest one that just came out. So there's that guy. I've read this book and I don't remember who this is. Well, not this book. So my history of Chainsaw Man is I had a power outage. I had the Viz Media app. Chainsaw Man was on it. Everyone was talking about it. The anime trailer just got put out for it, or was going to be put out for it. I forget the timeline on that. I decided to see what the fuss is about. I didn't have anything else to do. The power was out. So I read through all of Chainsaw Man in basically like a day and a half, essentially. I like Chainsaw Man. I think it's a bit overrated. That's not to say it's not good or great even, but people are calling it like a modern day masterpiece, and I don't even know if I would go that far. It's kind of hard for me to tell. I'm still trying to figure out what some of the classical modern masterpieces of manga are, what people would consider that, how I can preserve that, and how I consider that, and then kind of reflect on that and find that barometer for that. But I do think my initial impression of Chainsaw Man, it's not bad, it's great even, but I don't know if it's a masterpiece. It's still well worth your time in reading if you like. I wouldn't even call it a shonen. I wouldn't even call it a shonen. It's just more of like a battle seinen kind of, again, I know there's this terminology that people don't like using, but it's a very dark, psychological, horror-driven, and comedy-driven sometimes, mostly in terms of its ridiculousness, story. So Chainsaw Man will be something that I review once all the volumes come out, and then I'll reread it. It'll be interesting to experience it, because I don't really like reading stuff on the phone, especially manga and webcomics, because I like to, bring the page closer to my face, or to like really sit there and consider something. I don't feel like I have that for manga, or it feels like the paneling is weird for it sometimes. Webcomics and webtoons are usually a little bit different because they're all made to scroll, which makes something like Solo Leveling, you should be reading it on the phone instead of on a printed thing, but I just like print better. So an interesting one I have here is a light novel called Masquerade and the Nameless Woman. The writer of this is the same writer who wrote one of my favorite light novel series, The Empty Box and Zero with Maria. I don't even know the summary or the plot of this one, so I can't even tell you that. I haven't read it yet, but I'm really excited to get into it. It usually takes me a lot longer to read the darker light novels because I save the light stuff for work, because I don't want to read dark stuff during my breaks or lunches at work, because it put me in a bad mindset or a weird mindset. So I prefer to keep like the light fluffy stuff in at work time, which is the majority of the time that I have to read, is during lunches and breaks and stuff. All right, and for another new release, we have Shikimori is Not Just a Cutie Volume 7. I'm I think 2 or 3 volumes in terms of reading it behind, but I'm caught up in terms of owning the series. It's something I like a lot. It's nice comfort food. I don't like to bring manga to work, so it's mostly light novels I read at work. So the light fluffy stuff sometimes takes a back seat. It's kind of a reverse. Dark light novels usually I wait till get here to read, and then for fluffy manga I usually wait till I'm here at home to read. So a lot of that stuff can be weird in terms of how I actually consume and when I consume that material. But Shikimori is Not Just a Cutie is a good solid little romantic comedy. It's not innovative or crazy good or anything like that, but it's really solid and really nice and fluffy. For basic plot synopsis, it's about this couple. Forget the male main character's name, but he's more of like a regular guy. He's not tough. He's not super crazy or weird or anything. He's just a normal dude. Some would prescribe more feminine traits to him, but I would say he's just a regular person for the most part. While Shikimori, she has her cute side, but she's not just a cutie. She has her tough, aggressive, more masculine side and persona, which the main character loves about her. And the art's really good, especially when it zooms in on her tough faces and her cool faces. I know this one's getting an anime adaptation, so hopefully that one's pretty solid. But yeah, hopefully I'll catch up with this eventually. I'm kind of in the middle of some other darker stuff right now for reading manga, so we'll see how that goes. For another new release, and one I haven't read either, it's Call of the Night Volume 5. I'm a huge fan of Call of the Night. I think it's excellent. Really unique atmosphere, like nighttime. I don't even know the genre of music am I talking about, but it's just a very dark, solemn, not solemn in terms of like graveyard feeling, but solemn as in like chill, low tempo, night walking vibes, like something you listen to while you're walking during the middle of the night, or something you want to create a mood at during nighttime. Plot summary, I would say, is that there is a main character. Again, I don't know the name off the top of my head, and he is someone who's got disillusioned with the school system, with what awaits him after the school system in terms of joining the workforce, life in general, the people that he surrounds himself with, and how he treats and how his persona, how he doesn't like the person he is when he's at school, or who he feels like he has to be at school. So he stops showing up to school and has insomnia and starts walking around during the night. And so you meet all sorts of interesting characters like drunks, teachers who are off the clock, stuff like that. And you see office workers who are off the clock, and you see a different side of them, a weirder side of them, a more interesting and free side of them, which I think is really interesting. It makes me long for the days where I feel like I could walk around my town without having to worry about getting attacked or anything. But Call of the Night encaptures that perfectly. And for the main character, one of the people he meets turns out to be a vampire, and he decides, I want to become a vampire too. That sounds way better than what I was going to do before. And that's kind of the story between those two main characters. It's not, again, I wouldn't call it innovative, but what I think does stand out a lot is that it captures that night vibe, which I don't think any other manga or light novel I've read really express or go into, is the nighttime vibes. And it's a great vibe manga. And for that, it holds a really special place in my heart, because it's something I can read in a certain mood and just get really immersed in it. I usually don't get immersed in most manga, so this is one of the few that I actually do, especially when I read it in the right frame of mind and at the right time of day. And so it's something I've been saving for that period, because it's such a unique kind of story and unique kind of perspective with a unique atmosphere that I want to save it for the moments that matter. So I haven't read it yet, really excited for it and highly recommend it. I know there's an anime adaptation. I hope it's really good. I think the song that came out was really cool for it. I don't know if that's going to be the OP that came out with, or if that was just a trailer, but I think it has a really promising start at least, and I really hope they stick to that low tempo nighttime vibes, which I love about it. And even if it doesn't, you always have the manga, so that's the best part about this stuff. So some other new releases here. One that I've read and I really liked actually is Die Dark. This is from the creator Kyo Hishida from the Dorohedoro fame. It's a sci-fi story instead of kind of a fantasy steampunky story, which I would say Dorohedoro was. But unfortunately, I don't know if we'll ever get a season 2 of Dorohedoro, which I loved the first season of, and all the manga is sold out, so it's impossible if you want to read it. So I'm really glad that Die Dark, at least, I can catch up with and keep up with. It has very similar, I would say, trappings. It's a very dark, depressing, gory, depraved world with very lighthearted, comedic characters. Everyone talks in exclamation marks and high-pitched voices. You can even imagine the voices in your head, even though you haven't heard any voice acting for it. Having watched Dorohedoro, I kind of know how these characters talk for the most part, and I think a lot of the same mannerisms transfer over to Die Dark really well. Or even where they're saying like, "Oh, sorry about that," or "Fuck you, asshole," like it's all said with the same tone of voice. I really love Die Dark. I love the vibes of found family, of trying to find hope and trying to find entertainment and fun in a dark, despaired world. And even though it might be a little maybe too similar to Dorohedoro in a lot of ways, I do find the setting unique enough, and having not experienced the full story of Dorohedoro, it doesn't really bother me too much. It's a really unique, even though you can say it's feels pretty similar to the author's previous work, no one else really does it to the same quality, and so I'm okay with it, because it's hard to find good stuff revolving found family, finding hope and light in comedy in dark places and in depraved places. So I highly recommend Die Dark. Only 3 volumes out of it so far, so it's pretty easy to catch up on. Yeah, it's just really good stuff. And hopefully, please do another reprint of Dorohedoro so I can read it finally, because who knows if we'll ever get a season 2 of it. I really want to see another season of Dorohedoro, and I really want to buy the manga. It's free money, just reprint it. Alright, another light novel that I am in a new release that I haven't finished yet, but have started, is The Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten. This is one, it's a very low stress, zero frills, low stakes romantic comedy. It's something that's really easy to read at work, and something I just really enjoy. It's very pleasant to read. The characters are fun and nice. Basic plot summary is that there is an angel I've talked about the story before, but there is an angel, not angel, but there is two classmates living next to each other, one at the top of the social standings and one at the bottom. The one at the top is, of course, the female main character, who they call the Angel as her code name or nickname, essentially. And because of the proximity of living close to each other, they're both alone, and so they start meeting each other and hanging out with each other and finding comfort in each other's company. For a pretty common criticism for a lot of these stories, it's low drama, low stakes. The characters should just get together. What takes them so long? I think that's true for some stories, like the girl that I saved turned out to be my childhood friend. That one, I definitely was annoyed by the main characters and how dumb they were. These main characters don't bother me at all when you get inside their head and like their reasoning for it and how afraid they are that they'll compromise this delicate friendship and this delicate relationship that they've been fostering. I think it's a very interesting perspective on things, and I really enjoyed reading it, honestly. I'm just at the beginning of volume 3. There was a lot of weather stuff and everything, which made even my breaks and lunches, I was very tired, so I was just doom scrolling on Twitter or just zoning out generally. But I'm hoping to get back into it as hopefully things calm down around here a little bit. All right, next up, another new release that I have not read yet is a light novel, Tearmoon Empire Volume 2. I've talked about the first volume on my top 5 reads. I think that was for October. I don't remember exactly. It might have been earlier. But this is a light novel, a fantasy comedy, not an isekai technically, but a time travel one. The story is about character Mia, who is a princess of Tearmoon Empire. But because of the neglect of the royal family, generally not caring about the population, the common population, there's a revolt and a revolution. And as the guillotine slides down to execute her, she wakes up as her younger self with the diary from that event and from the future, which it foretells everything that led to that point. And so basically it's her journey where she tries to find a nice, quiet, peaceful life and inadvertently making things better for everybody. It's a really funny, there's a lot of misunderstandings where because of her knowledge of the future, it makes her seem a lot smarter than what she is, which people like, oh my god, she's a sage, she's so wise. A lot of the things that people view as, oh, she's so kind and saintly, she's just doing it because she doesn't want to get killed in the future for not acting or not interacting with certain people appropriately, and hearing and seeing the demeanor on the outside with the chaos inside is a really great dynamic that I love a lot. Also, it's a weird thing to talk about, but it has an excellent narrator and excellent tone of voice for that narrator. It reminds me a lot of the Kaguya-sama narrator, where it's very dry, very practical, like, she didn't really mean that, she's stupid, blah 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 blah, oh, this poor delusional fool, he's being tricked by this girl. It's really good stuff, really funny, laughed out loud quite a bit, and I'm really excited to get into volume 2. But yeah, I have a lot of stuff to read, so hopefully I can get to that sooner rather than later. But I highly recommend the first volume. I hope volume 2 holds up just as well. All right, next up is a light novel series with 2 volumes that I read, which is Trapped in a Dating Sim, Life is Hard, or The World of Otome Games is Tough for Mobs. This is a light novel, as I've said, with 2 volumes. That was the first one, and this is the second one here. Boom, boom. And just as kind of a little spoiler, this is Best Girl right here. So that's waifu right there. Basically, it's the title, like most light novels, kind of explains itself. There's this mailman character who is playing through this dating sim otome themed one, which basically means that it's one that's oriented towards a female audience, instead of like the generic ones that are meant towards male audiences. But it's a very hard game, which his sister has a hard time getting through, and so she asks him, or essentially blackmails him into playing through it, which he hates. Because obviously he's not a girl, he doesn't enjoy all the male love interests. So they play through it, achieves every route. As he's about to wrap up and end his playing, he dies, and finds himself reincarnated in the world as a random noble, but not even a high level one, pretty low tier. And so he has to kind of use his knowledge about the game and the world to, like most isekai, come out ahead. The interesting thing about this otome world, this fantasy otome world, is that instead of it being a patriarchy, it's a matriarchy. So he kind of finds himself, and it's a pretty easy slippery slope to be kind of incelly, where it's like, oh, women are all mean, or all women are like this, or they're just bullying me. But it's interesting seeing the thoughts of the main character as he realizes, like, oh, is this how women felt in my world? Oh, this is not a great situation. Why does anyone have to feel like this? So it's kind of interesting to get that alternate perspective on things. But this is definitely a very lighthearted, and again, not innovative, but really fun, entertaining, fast read. Even though like each book is like 300 to 400 pages, which is pretty long for a light novel. I think at that point you're just a regular novel. It goes by really quickly. It's really fun and funny. It's starting to become a harem story with the two main girls, as I've shown before. This is kind of the main girl who is also the main heroine in the Otome game. I'm not a big fan of her. I don't really like how there's these very nice, polite, boring main heroines for harem stories or for romantic love stories. For harem stories, the girls I usually cheer for always lose. As I said, I'm cheering for this girl, which is the villainess character, because I just think her design is more interesting, and I think her personality is more interesting because she's not goody two shoes. But for stuff like Origairu, I never cheered for the main character. I don't like this boring, nice, polite love interest that always seems to win. So fully expecting to lose on this one. But even then, it's still a fun read, and I really enjoy it. I believe there's 2 more volumes out that I'm waiting for. Again, with the weather delays and everything's kind of scaled back in terms of when I'll actually get stuff. But I hopefully get it because it's a nice breezy read that I really enjoy reading, and it's a good thing to de-stress too. It's a fun thing. There's a couple other funny bits where there's weird like mech moments and like steampunk moments, and the main character will do like almost third wall breaking humor. It was like, man, these developers just randomly threw garbage in here, didn't explain it. The world building, this is terrible. They don't explain how all these like treasure chests, where did this stuff come from? Like when you go like looting, it's pretty funny, and it's a pretty clever take where it covers spots in the world building and uses that as like, oh, it's just bad storytelling from the developers of the game. That stuff's always a really slippery slope because you don't know when it comes from when it goes from parody to just it being bad and acknowledging that it's being bad. But I would say this is definitely more parody of like fantasy dating sim games, especially. I don't have a lot of experience with Otome games or even dating sims in general, but for the few that I've experienced, the world building can be kind of rough, especially. So it's a funny little perspective, and it's a book series that I can recommend if you like these kind of villainess stories. For the main character, one of the redeeming factors of him, he's kind of a scumbag, very Cosmo-esque, where he likes to degrade the male main characters because he has a grudge because he spent so many hours going through their routes back when in his previous life in Japan. He likes to take the easy way out and everything. So I know I criticize Grieving Soul for having a Cosmo-like character, but I think Dating Sim has a unique little spin on it where he's someone who's played through this game before, and he's just kind of going through the motions to make sure he lives as peaceful life as possible, away from all the crazy Otome game stuff, and wants nothing to do with the main story. He doesn't want to be the hero. He doesn't want to be involved with the main characters. He just kind of wants to live a peaceful life that's low stakes, where he can live a life of luxury without having to worry about some of the stuff he had to do in his previous life. So I recommend it. It's a really fun, entertaining little story, not revolutionary. Doesn't have to be. It's just a lot of fun. That's all it has to be. All right, and the last series we're going to talk about here is Up to Date, and I'm really surprised I was able to get up to date for it. It is Spy Family. I had the first volume of it, and so now I have volume 2. Volume 3, Yours Best Girl, She's Great. She's waifu. One of my favorite characters. We have volume 4. Also a great character. All of these characters are great, so whatever. Volume 5. Saying that, I'm not a big fan of this one. So when you come to that in the story, you'll know who I'm talking about. And volume 6. So I'm up to date on Spy Family. I love Spy Family. It's not something I'm gonna dwell too much on because it's constantly sold out. People know it. People love it already. But it's constantly laugh out loud funny. Really entertaining setting and world and characters. It follows an agent, Twilight, who is working in a foreign country. And one of his missions is to get close to a foreign diplomat, and I think general maybe, who's planning to start a war between countries. And to infiltrate it, they decide the best way to do it is going through the academy where his son is and befriending the son, and eventually getting in league with the target. And so he gets his adopted family. He's a spy. The little girl he adopts turns out to be a psychic or an esper. his wife turns out to be an assassin, and their family kind of builds out from there. I won't say it's the most unique premise. It's very Mr. and Mrs. Smith. If you remember that movie, it's a good movie. But it's really good, really funny, really lighthearted, very wholesome. I'm really excited for the anime adaptation. I think Wit Studios is doing it, which is kind of wild considering their quality of animation. It should be pretty awesome. But yeah, Spy Family, again, I don't want to talk too much about it. I'll probably go in deeper whenever I decide to review it, what that looks like. But this is something I would recommend to just about anybody, especially if you like comedy, slice of life stuff. Some good action here and there. The art's really good, but in general, it's something that you're going to read for the comedy and the characters and the fun moments. Volume 6 was a really good one. All of them are really good ones for the most part. It's kind of hard for me to pick favorites. That's why I don't like reviewing or talking about individual volumes of a series, because it feels like it's a small part of a greater whole. Spy Family's great, check it out. And that does it for my manga and light novel haul for the month of December. It was a pretty decent sized one. Some of these hauls might start getting smaller as I try to catch up with the massive backlog that I now have. Some stuff you don't even know about, maybe you can see on the shelf that we'll talk about in the future, but it might slow down as I'm waiting for a lot of stuff that's out of stock. Don't know when that stuff's ever going to charge on the account, so I want to make sure that I have the funds available. Rounding out the collections I already have, trying to find stuff like Hell's Paradise. I only have the first volume, and it's one of the best first volumes I've ever read, but it's sold out everywhere, so I'm trying to slowly get that all collected as that stuff comes out of stock. So it's rounding out my collection, waiting on stuff that I have pre-ordered essentially or on back order, and catching up with all the stuff that I am currently reading or have sitting on the shelf that's unread. So you might see this stuff slow down in terms of volume and size of the haul, but I hope that I still get some interesting stuff that I like to talk about, that you like to watch. So if you have any comments, criticism, or anything you want to say, about the series that I'm reading, or anything you want to recommend as I start slowing down that maybe will get me to pick up the pace a little bit again, feel free to leave a comment. Please like the video. It helps me know what's good and what's bad about what I'm doing, and feel free to leave a comment telling me what you'd like to see more of or less of from me regarding these videos or any future content. And I wouldn't mind subscribing just to know that you would be invested in all the stuff that I'm making. So thank you for watching my December 2021, the last manga haul of 2021, manga and light novel haul of 2021. It was a fun year. I'm excited to fill out the rest of this two-deck shelf, this double-decker shelf right here, and see where all the manga and light novel takes us. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Have a great year, and have a great happy new year. Thank you.